Hi, I'm Grant Bartley. I thought it would be logical to start with the cosmological argument, which is really a set of similar arguments. Cosmological arguments are arguments that say that the universe requires a God to explain its existence. A good summary of this type of argument is shown in the question, if there's no God, where does the universe come from? A good version of the cosmological argument has been championed in recent years by William Lane Craig and is derived from the Kalam cosmological argument. The Kalam argument was originally advanced by Muslim theologians in the 9th century AD. The fact that this was originally a Muslim argument shows that cosmological arguments are not specific about the definition of God beyond saying that God is a self-creative, personal creator being. So this argument could be equally used by all monotheisms, and perhaps Hinduism and other polytheisms too, as long as they feature a self-creative, personal creator being. The first part of the argument as Dr. Craig presents it goes like this. 1. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. 2. The universe began to exist. 3. Therefore, the universe has a cause. The first part is a logically valid argument, meaning that the conclusion 3 logically follows from the premises 1 and 2. It is, however, disputable whether the premises of the argument are true. I think they are, and that therefore this is a good argument, as well as a logically valid one. First, the idea that everything that begins to exist has a cause is equivalent to the idea that nothing can come from nothing. To say that the universe came into existence for no cause or reason boils down to saying that there is no explanation for the universe's existence. If you think it's better to believe that there is no rational explanation for the universe, rather than believe that there is a rational explanation for it, then you cannot claim you're being rational. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. We can say that we currently have the best possible reasons to believe that both these ideas are true. In other words, the reasons to disbelieve the premises of the Kalam argument are not nearly as good as the reasons to believe them, and therefore we should believe them. Although scientific opinion currently favours the idea that the universe came into existence, scientific opinion is notoriously fickle, and the idea that the physical universe had a beginning may change with new evidence or reasoning. Maybe, for instance, the universe is cyclical. In fact, for some versions of the cosmological argument, we don't need the universe to have a beginning. I don't believe the physical universe is eternal, but even if the material universe had always existed, Leibniz's question, why is there something rather than nothing, would still be meaningful. And Leibniz's version of the cosmological argument, which uses the idea that something that does not necessarily exist requires something that does necessarily exist to ultimately explain it, would still apply. If so, even if the physical universe were eternal, it would still require a necessarily existent being, that is, God, to explain its existence. The universe began to exist. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. So the next question is, why should we think this cause is God? Now, one popular atheist alternative says that the cause of the existence of the universe is the laws of quantum mechanics, in particular Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. The quantum argument goes like this. 1. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says that absolute certainty of any state of matter is impossible. 2. Absolute nothingness is a state about which there may be absolute certainty, specifically that there is absolutely nothing there. 3. Therefore, absolute nothingness is a physical impossibility. 4. Therefore, something physical, the universe, must exist. Now, the most obvious objection to this is that when we want to know why anything exists, this does not just include the physical world, but everything. So to say that the laws of quantum mechanics necessitate the physical universe does not solve the problem of existence. The question simply turns into, why do the laws of quantum physics exist? And if these laws are to be explained in terms of some higher laws, for instance of mathematics or logic, then we would be bound to ask, why do the higher laws exist? And so we get into a potential infinite regress with the mystery of existence not having been solved. There is another strong objection to this idea of the quantum creation of the universe. Heisenberg's laws are laws governing certainty and uncertainty. Certainty and uncertainty are states of knowledge, and knowledge is a function of minds. There is no knowledge or uncertainty where there are no minds. Therefore, for Heisenberg's uncertainty principle to work requires a mind that can be certain or uncertain about the state of anything. So the quantum argument for the existence of the universe presupposes a creative mind, which for the sake of argument let's call God. So we're back to God. Yet why must the cause of the universe be a self-creative God? If we do not posit an ultimate uncaused cause, we are left with asking of any cause, and so what caused that? We must posit a cause of things which is also a cause of itself, that is, a self-existent or necessary cause, meaning a being that contains the cause of its own existence within itself. The problem with the cosmological argument is showing why God is a necessarily existent being, a being that contains the cause of its own existence within itself. Necessary truths are ideas that cannot not be true, and there certainly are necessary truths. The primary example is the law of non-contradiction, which unsurprisingly says that literal contradictions are logically impossible. An Aristotelian formulation of this law is, it is impossible for the same thing to both be and not be at the same time in the same sense. The other laws of logic are logically derived from the law of non-contradiction, and so are also necessary truths, as indeed are the laws of mathematics, such as Pythagoras' theorem. In other words, if Pythagoras' theorem is true, then it is necessarily true, meaning that it cannot possibly be false. Necessary truths such as the law of non-contradiction, Pythagoras' theorem and so on are not time-dependent. Indeed, they would be true even if there were no physical universe for them to apply to, or human minds to apply them. Now I want to apply this fact to show why God is a necessarily existent being, and so is the uncaused cause of everything that has come into existence. Consider, how do necessary truths exist? Necessarily and eternally, yes. But from another angle we might ask, don't truths exist when they're being considered by a mind? We can combine these ideas to say that necessary truths must exist in a necessarily existent mind. Or, if minds are needed for abstract ideas to exist, yet some ideas are eternally true, this necessitates the eternal existence of a mind. And so this is why God, in whose mind the necessary truths of logic and mathematics, etc., ultimately exist, is a necessarily existent being and the uncaused cause of everything that exists. A subtler formation of the relationship I'm after is that God is the ground of necessary truths. God being the ground of, say, the law of non-contradiction means something like the law of non-contradiction has its truth in God, or, in somewhat oversimplified terms, that the eternal truth of the law of non-contradiction is part of what God is. God is a necessary being because necessary truths are both grounded in God and necessarily true. therefore God exists. The same argument can't apply to the physical universe, because the laws of logic and mathematics are not physical things, but rather non-physical truths which have reality when minds are aware of them. A simpler version of the same argument is that it is impossible for being itself to not be. Being itself must be, but God is the ground of being. Therefore, God is a necessarily or a self-existent being. Therefore, God exists.